Okay, good evening. We are returning from closed session. We had one item on the closed session agenda. Mr. City Attorney, do we have anything to report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss the one item of pending litigation on the agenda, Waldow versus 513 North GLP. The council discussed the item, but no reportable action was taken.
Okay, thank you. See, you want to take the roll again, or are we okay?
Councilmember Vega?
Here.
Councilmember Starbuck?
Present.
Councilmember Mosby?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Janelle Osborne? Here. Mayor Bob Lingle?
Here. Okay, let's see. Invocation. Would you please stand, remove your hats, and Chaplain Keith McClellan will give us an invocation.
Let us pray. We give you thanks, O God, the source of life and love, for giving us another day. We give thanks for our city's business, government, farming, healthcare, education, church, and nonprofit workers and leadership. We give special thanks for all those who volunteer their time and resources to make Lompoc a community that cares and works together to ensure the vitality of our entire community. We humbly ask that you hear our prayers, both for the good of this city and the good of every individual that resides in and visits our city. May we be known as a community where every life matters and has value, regardless of an individual's socioeconomic status. Let us be known far and wide as we, the people of Lompoc, a people who are tolerant of differing beliefs, values, opinions, and cultures, while being united in our commitment to safeguard those differences and united in finding common ground in what is good, doing this together. May the words "those people" diminish in our vocabulary and the words "our people" increase as we seek to understand and speak as we, the people of Lompoc. Thank you, God, for all who are willing to run for and serve as our elected civic leaders. As each presents their case for representing our community, may they be known not only on the basis of their positions on issues and vision for our city, but also for the content of their character. May they lean not solely on their own understanding, but in all decisions, speech, and action, and knowledge, and trust in you and your infinite wisdom. Give them strength and desire to focus on the mission, purposes, and responsibilities that you, Almighty God, have bestowed on each of them. We thank you, God, for all who are employed by our city. May they find fulfillment in the work, and may they feel appreciated and valued by our community, for each employee is a critical and essential contributor to the success of Lompoc, and we are grateful for their service. And may we, as constituents and civic leaders, through your divine presence and grace, be a community that is generous with praise, disinclined to take offense, slow to criticize, slow to anger, and quick to forgive as you forgive us. May we seek first to understand before seeking to be understood, so that your will be done. Teach us to express our diversity of opinions in truth, grace, love, and respect. Give us strength of character to be patient and tolerant with those with whom we may disagree and with those who may disagree with us. And finally, Almighty God, restore us all with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community consistent with your purposes and worthy of your pleasure. May we, in the midst of life's challenges, find your shalom, your peace. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness, love, and ever-present spirit. And everybody said, Amen.
Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Okay, on October 11th, I and Mayor Pro Tem Janelle Osborne, we presented a proclamation to domestic violence awareness at the vigil in Lompoc City Hall courtyard, proclaiming October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And now it is my honor I'm going to read a proclamation to Rotary International World Polio Day. Anyone else from Rotary want to come up? Okay. We don't serve wine here, so you're... Okay, this is a proclamation, Rotary International World Polio Day. Whereas Rotary International, founded February 23rd, 1905 in Chicago, Illinois, is the world's first and one of the largest nonprofit service organizations. And whereas the Rotary Club of Lompoc was chartered by Rotary International on March 21st, 1925. And whereas there are over 1.2 million Rotary Club members comprised of professionals and business leaders in over 35,000 clubs in 200 countries and geographical areas. And whereas the Rotary motto, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And whereas Rotary in 1985 launched Polio Plus and spearheaded a global polio eradication initiative, which today includes the World Health Organization's U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to immunize the children of the world against polio. And whereas polio cases have dropped by 99.9% since 1988, and the world stands on the threshold of eradicating this disease. And whereas to date, Rotary has contributed more than $1.7 billion US and countless volunteer hours to the protection and more than 2 billion children in 122 countries. And whereas Rotary is currently working to raise an additional $150 million, which, if realized, will be tripled by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for a total of up to $450 million over the next 3 years. And whereas these efforts have provided much needed operational support, medical personnel, laboratory equipment, and educational materials for health workers and parents. And whereas, in addition, Rotary has played a major role in decisions by the government and that contribute more than $8 billion to this effort. Now therefore I, Bob Lingle, Mayor, City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim October 24th, 2018 as World Polio Day in Lompoc, California, and encourage all citizens to join myself and Rotary International in the fight for a polio-free world. Congratulations.
Thanks, Bob.
Can I say a few words?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just keep my words brief. I'm Ed Braxton. I'm the current president of the Rotary Club of Lompoc, and I'm proud to be joined by Rob Klug, Rob Traylor, Ed Schuler, and Mike DeLay, who are also members of our club. And Mayor Lingle, please forgive me. I'm just going to share something very brief with you, and this is a top 5 list, kind of like the David Letterman show. But the top 5 reasons to eradicate polio. Number 1, to improve lives. 16 million people are walking today who would have otherwise been paralyzed by polio. Number 2, to invest in the future. If polio isn't eradicated, within 10 years, as many as 200,000 children could be paralyzed by it each year. That's 200,000 children each year. It would only take 5 years to get to 1 million. And a polio-free world will be a safer world for children everywhere. Number 3, to improve child health. Polio surveillance networks and vaccination campaigns also monitor children for other health problems like vitamin deficiency and measles, so those things can be addressed sooner through these efforts. Number 4 is to save money. A polio-free world will save the global economy between $40 and $50 billion, that's billion with a B, in healthcare costs within the next 20 years. And number 5, to make history. Polio eradication would be one of history's greatest public health achievements. with polio following smallpox to become only the second human disease eliminated from the world. So as you remember, next Wednesday, October 24th, please remember that it's World Polio Day, and I thank the mayor for proclaiming that as World Polio Day here in Lompoc. Thank you very much.
Okay, city manager's report.
Nothing to report tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public comment on the consent calendar. You have 3 minutes to speak to us on the consent calendar. And just so you know, item number 6 is going to be pulled, so, okay. Takes care of that. Anyone else on the consent calendar? Okay, we're going to close public comment on the consent calendar, bring it back to the council. Consent calendar it consists of things that are generally considered routine and will be passed with one motion and a vote unless a council member chooses to pull an item. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling item number 6. It will be heard immediately before the second oral communication this evening. So it will be heard, but not until later. Does anyone else want to pull an item? Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item number 4.
Okay, pull item number 4.
And I believe we need to pull item 1 since it wasn't provided to us.
Correct, okay. And item number 1, we do not have the minutes from that meeting, okay. So item number 4 and item number 6 will be heard this evening just prior to the second oral communication. Okay, with those corrections, 4, 6, and 1 pulled. Could I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Vega.
I'll make a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent calendar.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded in discussion. Let's vote. Oh, clear, okay. Okay. And that passes 5-0. Thank goodness we have a city clerk. Okay, staff presentations, announcements? None? Okay. Oral communication, this is your opportunity to speak to us for up to 3 minutes on any item that can come before this council. If you want to speak to us on something that's being heard this evening, you're probably better off waiting for that item, but you're more than willing, or you're more than able to speak to us on it now. Okay, no, seeing no one's, oh, you're
How you doing? Happy Pretty Lady Day. Begin. I solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, my God. Okay, $580,000 to clean up the riverbed. I've been down the riverbed lots of times. I've seen maybe 20 homeless people. Where does it justify? Where's the money go? They'll fall on deaf ears, right? After the meeting, we'll talk about it. Okay. I propose that we do a build-a-bike workshop. You want to know why crime is so high in this town? Because y'all took the recreation. If you don't like basketball, football, or any sports, guess what? They're sitting at home, they're watching their folks do drugs. And guess what? You got a vicious cycle over and over and over again until you all break it. Took away the bowling alley, skating rink, arcade. A lot of people can't afford it to begin with, right? But it was there. And what are we left with? Drug-ridden, controlled state, given permission from the Constitution to the Defense Department to use chemical and biological warfare on us. Us. Cocaine, freaking methamphetamines, alcohol. What's the difference between alcohol and methamphetamine? It's all processed the same, but you generate more revenues from a DWI. Car gets impounded, revenue again. It's all a money-making scam by the divine community. I say that's screwed up. Nobody should be above anybody. Nobody. Because they got a little bit of money? I don't think so. Y'all say, God we trust. What God are you trusting in? The almighty dollar that's filtered around greed? Greed generates revenue. The almighty greenback. Ain't nothing. You strip everything off and you're just as equal as the next one. They say there's no rule in man's law. What about if it's God-driven? I read in domicile law when they were burning the Bibles, burning information on how a poor man could come to the top to be equal as y'all. Sit on the cabinet, so to speak, and voice a word that falls on deaf ears because they'll follow it after the program. We'll answer that later. Bull crap. It doesn't get heard. It falls on deaf ears. It should be falling on deaf ears. No man is better than the next. With green eye, blue eye, brown eye. It all starts with y'all. There's stuff that could be free. What? Condiments from McDonald's, you get free napkins. No, I'm talking where somebody could go and actually get a free meal. Y'all could have solved the riverbed issue. Give a person a bike and a freaking trailer. There's a spot. Go clean up the mess in the back 9, and that spot's for you. But if not, kick rocks, go to the next town. Builton will hear your mess.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, we're going on to, anyone else for public comment? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I,
Sure, go
a
ahead.
quick question with the city manager? I think the safe parking program is coming back. It's sometime if I could just,
Yeah, what we need to do is we're still looking for somebody besides the city that has already done that. So there is down south in Santa Barbara has a setup. So we're going to be talking to the person who actually handles that. We had to finish the homeless piece first and the riverbed cleanup, and then we can get back to that one.
thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you. We're going to go on to, where are we going on to? It's consent. Okay, we're closing oral communication. We're going to go to appointments. And we have one appointment this evening. It is appointment to the Human Services Commission. This is let's see, Councilmember Mosby, this is your appointment.
Mark Ashmal, he's actually my appointment. He had to take a 30-day step down while he was having fun at the triage center, right?
First of all, thank you, Councilman Mosby, for the appointment. I did just do 30 days. I was the triage coordinator. It was an interesting 30 days of my life, and obviously a very trying 30 days of those that were affected by the riverbed sweep. I just wanted to take the time now to thank the city for the opportunity to serve my community. I wanted to thank all the providers that came, and we touched, I think we served a lot of lives. We did a lot of good. Not everyone got served, and not everyone got saved. And this was not a solution to our problem here in Lompoc. It was not a solution to homelessness, as that gentleman pointed out. But we did a lot of good. There was a lot of people that got some good out of this. So to me, it was worth every penny. I had one young lady that I worked with for 7 years that, because of the sweep, she's in the bridge house. And that's 7 years of being in the riverbed. I could not get her out of the riverbed, and now she's at the bridge house. So for me, it's a blessing. I wanted to thank the Parks Department, the PD, Peter Adams' office, Bob Nelson, Lee Collier, all the social services, all the providers, Planting a Seed, Pastor Bernie at Foursquare, because he sent forward Chaplain Keith, who was a blessing the first week and got me through it all. It was a very interesting first week. Pam Bevins, who came and volunteered for me. And then obviously Pastor Brian Halterman, who was a rock through this whole thing. I will be donating in the name of Pastor Brian to my commission $500, and in the name of Chaplain Keith, $250 to Salvation Army and $250 to the Red Cross Relief Fund. So I do appreciate The opportunity and the experience that I had was amazing, stressful, life-changing. But yeah, there's a lot of work still to be done in this community, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. And
With that, I want to nominate him to the Human
Yeah,
Service
yeah.
Commission. I mean,
well, yeah, see if you can get 2 seconds.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? Let's vote. Okay, you squeaked in there, Mark. Thank you. Okay, that passes 5-0. Okay, we'll move on to item number 9, which is adoption of resolution number 6201, parentheses 18, declaring intention to form the proposed Community Facilities District number 201801, Summit View Homes. And see, this will be Planning Manager Brian Halverson.
I'm actually going to pass the presentation on over to our consultant, so he's going to go ahead and do a presentation, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Brian, and good evening, Mayor Lingle, members of the council. Again, my name is Blair Oz. I'm with SCI Consulting Group, and I'm pleased to be here this evening to discuss with you your first action on forming the Community Facilities District for Summit View Homes. The resolution before you this evening is a resolution expressing your intent to form the CFD, which is a financing district, financing certain services within the project. That resolution, the developers have submitted a petition petitioning you to form this CFD on their behalf to finance these services. The resolution then also sets a date for November 20th for a public hearing for you to follow up with the formation. Tonight, I just have a brief presentation just to go through some of the details of the CFD and then take some of your questions. Again, a community facility district, for those in the audience, is a financing district that grants a local agency authority to finance a wide array of different types of public facilities and services. And in this case, for Summit View Homes, it's going to be for public services. There are 2 different types of elections that can be held to form a CFD. One is a registered voter election where if the boundaries of the community facilities district are one where you would have more than 12 registered voters in that district, then it'd be an election of all of the registered voters within that area. But in this case, the community facilities district is just for this small subdivision, and so and it's undeveloped property at this sense. So the qualified electors that will determine that will participate in the election are actually just the landowners themselves, which in fact is just one landowner. If you recall, council members, we discussed this back in December. Back in December, you took action to adopt local goals and policies for community facilities districts. And at that time, we had quite a bit of conversation about this. But I just wanted to bring this up as well. As you're aware, you have a landscape and lighting district, an assessment district for pool maintenance. And we recommended to the city that a CFD be considered rather than a landscape and lighting district. So these are two different types of financing districts, and they have different aspects. But for this particular project, we recommended a community facilities district instead for the reasons that are outlined here and that we've discussed before. So here are the description of the services that will be funded by the CFD. So the annual operation, maintenance, and servicing essentially of repair and replacement of the streets, the roads, and the roadway infrastructure there, gutters, street lighting, storm drainage. And then there's also an annual contribution to fire protection and suppression services, ambulance, paramedics, police protection services, criminal justice services. And this description is actually quite broad because this is the definitions that are used within the Community Facilities District Act. And then all costs associated with the formation of the CFD and then any annual administration of the CFD special tax will be also funded, so there won't be any impact on the general fund of the city. And then homeowners association is also will fund the annual maintenance and servicing of the private infrastructure and the maintaining and replacement of the trees and landscaping within the subdivision. Again, so here is the boundary map for the proposed CFD, and it's essentially the one parcel that will be subdivided into, I believe, 44 homes. The tax, this is the maximum special tax. So this is the tax in today dollars. This is the tax that would be submitted to the voter to be approved by the voter, and this would be a tax lien on the property. So the developed residential property would be charged $775 per unit per year. And then undeveloped property is $2,620 per acre. Now, the undeveloped property special tax is really more of a contingency tax. Most likely all of the tax will be on the homes, but in the event that you have some services in a particular year and there's not enough homes that are developed, you have the authorization to anything that because you'll only be able to tax up to that maximum amount of $775. If you have additional needs in that budget, you can charge that undeveloped tax up to that amount. So, for example, you might have a few homes developed, and then some of the services need to be provided, but yet there's a delay in the project. You'd be able to recover those costs on the undeveloped property. So at no point would there be an impact on the general fund. And then the homeowners association property and any tax exempt property, it does not pay the tax. So the budget for the project at build out is $34,000. And again, so the first, second, third year, that could, it might not be exactly $34,000. You could work up to that, but at build out, we anticipate that to be the budget. And that, you can also look at that as the maximum allowable budget. So at no point would you be able to collect more than that amount, with one exception is that the maximum tax and this budget amount is tied to inflationary adjustments, and so those two adjustments are there's take 50% of one, 50% of the other, and you can adjust that maximum special tax by that amount, or 4%, which is ever greater. And the purpose behind that adjustment is just that you're funding services in perpetuity, and so those costs are going to escalate over time, and so you need to adjust the tax so that the tax is recovering the costs that they're intended to recover. And so this maximum special tax will allow you to do that way into the future. And the tax will be collected along with other property taxes. It'll be put onto the, submitted to the Santa Barbara County Tax Collector and submitted along with other taxes and assessments. And then so each year, the city will go through a simple process of putting together a budget to fund those services, and then determine that rate each year, and it again can't go up to that it can't exceed that maximum special tax rate. But you'll establish that budget and then submit those taxes for the following year. So Leslie, just to give you a sense of the formation proceedings, again, as I'd indicated tonight, there's the resolution of intention to establish this CFD. So that resolution is accepting the petition of the landowner, setting the public hearing for November 20th, also preliminary approving the boundary map, and then, so after, that resolution is before you tonight. With the adoption of that resolution, the next step would be for the city clerk to record the boundary map with the county recorder, and then we would also, on her behalf, mail the one ballot to the one landowner, and then at your November 20th board meeting, you'll have quite a few items to, very quick, but quite a few items to go through. You'll hold the notice public hearing for that time. You'll have a resolution to form the CFD, and then there'll be a resolution calling for the election within that CFD. And then conveniently, we have already mailed the ballot and had received the ballot. So immediately after you call for the election, you will be able to open the ballot, canvass the results, and then declare the results of the election. And then following that, that resolution declaring the results of the election, there will be an ordinance that you'll be able to introduce to set the special taxes for the upcoming year. And then a last item is just to record the notice of special tax lien after the meeting with the county recorder. So one resolution tonight, quite a few in November, but it'll culminate pretty much by the end of November. With that, are there any questions?
I just have one question.
Yes.
You keep mentioning a single owner, which that's what I thought it was, but on page 11, it says total landowner votes, and it says 11.
Yes, good question. So there's one qualified elector, but their vote is, they get one vote per acre or portion thereof. So the CFD in question is 10 point something acres. So they get effectively 11 votes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. It was just a little confusing at times.
Yes.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Back in December, one of the big issues with this development was who was going to take care of the roads, basically Harris Grade Road and Parissima Road. Would this district fund the repair and maintenance of those roads? Because it wasn't mentioned here, or will that be on the city to do that?
It certainly will. If I recall, it was approximately $250,000 in maintenance over like a 20-year period, and so we've worked out part of that special tax will have a portion that can be set aside into a sinking fund and that can be used for repair and replacement of that section of road over time.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. What's your pleasure? Councilmember Osborne.
I move to adopt Resolution 620118, declaring intention to form the proposed Community Facilities District 2018-01.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. In discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Yes. Okay, the question was, did the motion and the second include all the staff recommendations? And since she, maybe you want to clarify that. You said, I believe you said 620118, which was to include all staff recommendations. Okay. Is that clear with everyone? Okay, good question. Okay, moving on to item number 10. It is introduction of ordinance number 165418, amending the effective date of ordinance number 1647, parentheses 18. And this is Brian Halverson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. It's my pleasure to present this item. You have heard it a few times, but it has come back. So I'd like to present a little update and a discussion. So just starting with council background, just to remind everyone tonight that on August 21st, 2018, council adopted ordinance 1647-18, approving a zone change for a health clinic that would be approximately 28,000 square feet. That zone change was needed in order to accommodate that clinic because, as you probably recall, that property is zoned residential now. As part of that approval, the council wanted to adopt a payment in lieu of taxes, also called a pilot. That was approved as well. Just a reminder as well on the site location. That is the site off of West Ocean. That's actually 2 lots. And the project that was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission and moved forward to the council level was the clinic. You can see on the southern part of that lot, the front part, there's no plans to develop that, but tentative for retail. And just a quick view of the elevations of that health clinic. Also, the payment in lieu of taxes was approved with the following terms: an annual payment in lieu of annual property taxes in perpetuity, a 2% increase each year, and also this pilot agreement would apply to successors. Now, to date, in order to make that effective, it would need to be signed, and that agreement has not been signed by the applicant. Therefore, the ordinance, which is 1647-18 for the zone change, has not become effective. It's kind of in limbo. So during that limbo phase, the applicant has presented a new agreement called a payment for city services. That is what's being considered tonight, is that new agreement. Now, that new agreement, quickly with the terms, annual payments in perpetuity, initial payment set at $15,000. An increase, 2% increase would apply each subsequent year. And also, just like the previous agreement that the council approved, it would apply to successors. Just kind of going back, if they were successors, I just want to explain that if another nonprofit was to purchase that front part, so essentially this part right here, that agreement's going to apply. Now let's say Amazon buys it. We would love to see Amazon, but if they did, they would just pay the standard property tax. In summary, tonight the staff recommendation is to review and actually approve the payment for city services agreement and authorize the city manager to sign that agreement. Introduce ordinance number 1654 for the first reading by title only with further reading waived to amend that effective date. So if you approve the amending that effective date, that's going to be under ordinance 1647-18, or of course provide us other direction this evening. That doesn't conclude the staff presentation. I'll go ahead and leave that slide up. If you have questions for staff, I'm available.
Any questions for Mr. Helverson? Okay, Councilmember Vega.
Brian, the payment for city services, maybe you could clarify just a little bit in short form what that might entail. I'm reading attachment 1 here. If there's any additional terms that were applied to that, or just it's just a change in terminology.
It is a change in terminology, and actually I'd like to defer to the city attorney, Jeff Malavi, to clarify that change in the terminology. That's a good question.
It is a change in terminology. The applicant simply requested that instead of having this agreement be in lieu of property taxes, it just be considered payments from the applicant to the city for services the city provides.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Osborne.
This is just a technicality, but the line item should then say, and approval of payment for city service agreement instead of payment in lieu of taxes agreement as the line item.
Absolutely. I apologize. That was an error. So thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, anything else? Councilmember Vega.
Well, Brian, so what we're doing here is we're discussing this. We don't have a signed agreement yet by the actual CHC people, so maybe you could explain where we're going with this right now tonight.
Oh, certainly. So the applicant's here tonight. They're very anxious to build this product, to build the clinic. Obviously, the previous agreement that the council wanted to see, the applicant, for a variety of reasons, wanted to propose a new agreement. So tonight, if you agree with what they're proposing, then that would move forward to Mr. Troop, and then he could sign that agreement and then move this project along. This project is actually in plan check right now, believe it or not, this clinic. And so we're really looking for the council to authorize Mr. Troop to move forward to sign that. So as far as why the applicant chose some slightly different terms, they're here tonight and they could give the background on that. But essentially, they're hoping the council will agree with what they have proposed.
Thank you. I just, I'm sure they're in a positive mode to move forward to actually agree to have this presented to us. I just want to, I think the project is going to be very, very useful here in Lompoc, so I'm happy that we're coming to some sort of consensus here. Thank you.
Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, I want to, thank you for going through this, and CHC as well as working with us to get to this agreement to partner with us as we've kind of asked, and we appreciate you guys doing it. And as Councilmember Starbuck's favorite word is in perpetuity, there are 2 words there, and I think it's it's good to partner up, and I appreciate that. So and I thank you guys for battling, so to say, back and forth and coming to this conclusion.
Okay, would the applicant like to say a few words?
Good evening. I'm Pam Ritchie with RM Design Group, and this is my 4th visit related to the proposed rezoning and agreement. And I wanted to go on record to thank the city staff for their guidance and support through the processing of the rezoning requests, and also that we are in agreement with the recommendation this evening to reintroduce the ordinance and approve the current version of the agreement, which is now entitled Payment for City Services Agreement. And as Brian described in his presentation, it's really more directly describes the intended purpose of the agreement, which is to offset any impacts to the city for services it provides financially. So I think that Brian also covered the 3 main things the city council's been looking for, which is a set annual payment, a 2% increase each year, and that the terms, probably the biggest sticking point along the way was that the terms of the agreement would be in perpetuity, as long as there was a nonprofit in the building where the clinic's proposed. And with that, I didn't have anything more to offer, except that we're, again, supporting the recommendation tonight.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open this up to the public.
Hello, Nicholas Gonzalez, resident of Lompoc. I'd like to commend the applicant for acknowledging the concerns of the city, addressing those concerns, and coming back with a viable project that I believe is now a win-win for the community all around. And I would suggest that you approve the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Councilmember Vega.
I recommend that we move forward with this, and so I propose we accept staff recommendation.
Okay, that would be items 1 and 2 on there,
For
okay?
1 and 2, yes, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Mosby.
I'd second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Let's vote. Okay, that passes 5-0. Congratulations. Okay, moving on.
Question for the
Yes,
applicant?
go ahead.
When's the signing and the cake cutting and the ribbon cutting? Congratulations, guys. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to, yes, Councilmember Vega.
I'd like to say thank you for sticking with us with this project. I think we want to be known as a business friendly, but we're also budget concerned, and now you're a partner with us, so you're just like us. You're trying to make ends meet and provide the services for Lompoc, which are greatly needed, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 11, introduction of ordinance number 1655, parentheses 18, defining household pets.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, before we start this item, it is listed under council requests, but this item needs to be a public hearing, and it has been noticed as a public hearing, so I just wanted to note that.
Okay. Mr. Halverson. If it wasn't for you tonight, we could all stay home.
Yeah, every once in a while that happens. We'll get the slides to come up. All right, here it is. I guess I could say this item is back by popular demand. There have been people, members of the community that, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, that have wanted discussion about chickens. Even though this ordinance is not just about chickens, there'll be an emphasis on that just because the community has brought it up. Giving a little bit of background, we're going to go back to 2015 when the Planning Commission actually reviewed an amendment to the zoning ordinance, specifically for the definition of household pets, which would allow the non-commercial keeping of small animals such as chickens, birds, ducks, and rabbits. These animals are not currently considered household pets and therefore not permitted in the city. Lastly, the amendment would not apply to turkeys and peacocks, so we won't be talking about turkeys and peacocks tonight unless the council wants to consider those as part of the definition of a household pet. Also, just a little background on the Planning Commission. Well, first of all, I just want to say that back in 2015 on a 4-1 vote, they did recommend the approval of this amendment for household pets that would allow chickens. So the revised definition will allow small animals in the rural, agricultural, and single-family residential zones. I'll talk about that a little bit more later because there's something I want to add regarding single-family residential zones. It would also allow keeping of small animals in other zones. For example, you may be in the R2 or R3, but you have a single-family residence, so those zones would also be allowed. I think You will find single-family residences also located in the OTC zone as well. So if you do have an established single-family residence, they would be able to take advantage of this amendment to the code as well, legally established. And getting back to City Council, back on September 15th, 2015, the Planning Commission recommendation, obviously I mentioned the 4-1 vote, it failed to receive approval on a 2-3 vote, so it's pretty close. And then on July 18th, there was a motion by the council to bring this item back, a discussion about chickens, so staff essentially brought back the same ordinance with some minor changes to make it a little cleaner, a little easier to read, so that the City Council can consider this ordinance. There is an emphasis, as I mentioned, on chickens, but there's other animals as well. The current definition specifically excludes chickens as well as other animals, and so they're not allowed. So when people come to Lompoc and they say, oh, I want to have chickens, right now you can't because that definition does not include chickens. So it needs to be amended in order to allow chickens. We've simplified it, I already mentioned that, and there's a section for the miniature Asian pot-bellied pigs. Don't ask me much about those because I'm not going to know a lot about pot-bellied pigs. I guess that section's been in the code for a very long time. And a separate section addressing the animal raising and keeping, not for sale to others, personal use of residents of a single-family dwelling, and a clean and sanitary enclosure. Now, obviously, we're going to have some criteria because there could be challenges whenever you introduce animals on a property. So what we've come up with, well, back in 2015, what they came up with was the following, and I'll just quickly go through this, and I'm sure there'll be questions. At least 40 feet from any door or window of each adjoining residence, at least 10 feet from the rear property line, unless you're abutting an alley. So if you had an alley in the back, then that setback wouldn't apply. 10 feet from each side property line, excludes the front, so we don't want, if the council doesn't want, but staff is recommending not having the chickens in the front yard. The rear half of the lot, again, there's a lot of reasons for that. And then lastly, a maximum of 6 animals. So if someone only has 3 chickens, and let's say they have 3 ducks, they're done, no more. 6 is the max as proposed tonight in this amendment. Roosters are prohibited for obvious reasons. Does not create an offensive noise or odor for adjacent property owners. Birds, not including chickens and ducks, are permitted to be kept in an enclosed aviary, no closer than 30 feet from any residence. This last point, I want to talk a little bit about. The number of birds in an aviary shall not exceed 6 for each full 6,000 square feet of premises of the owner. We may want to consider the 6,000 square feet, some other options, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. Staff wanted to kind of understand the issues a little bit better, so we did a site visit, and I think other council members might have done the same visit that I did, just a different day. Dare to Dream Farms is a local farm. It's in the county, it's not in the city, that we visited, and we just wanted to talk to someone that actually raises chickens, some of the issues that are that come up with chickens, and so her comments, Megan Raff, are attached to the council report tonight to give you just some insight on what some of the issues the city would be facing if they adopt this ordinance that would allow chickens. Not to be a downer, but I do need to emphasize that code enforcement there'll be a spike in code enforcement. Nothing against chickens, but what will end up happening is we'll get complaints. We only have one code enforcement officer, so I just want council to be aware that I do oversee code enforcement as well, and so we will get people that are complaining for a variety of reasons, and we could have things like rodents, other wildlife looking for food, attracted to other animals, infections. Did some research on that, and salmonella can sometimes be something that is a potential, not to scare you, but it can. And if this is approved this evening, I would recommend, if the council agrees with me, and this was not discussed in 2015, but to come back with kind of a status report in 1 year, so that we could tell you, one, how is code enforcement going, number of complaints, and some of the issues that are surrounding the ordinance, just so we can kind of fine tune it, or maybe it's perfect and we don't have any, the council doesn't have any changes. I wasn't here in 2015, and at that time, though, there was a draft initial study that was prepared, but it was never circulated. So, but that study did not identify any significant impact, so that's good. If the council wants to move forward with this ordinance, we would go ahead and circulate that for a 30-day public comment period, and then we would bring those comments back or address those comments in the staff report when we bring the ordinance back. And then once those are addressed, we would go ahead and file a notice of determination. So tonight, essentially what we're asking is to introduce the ordinance 1655, parentheses 18, as a first reading by title only with further reading waived, amending the code 17.008020, defining household pets, of course, with that amendment, and provide direction to staff on the circulation of the initial study negative declaration, or provide other direction. That concludes my staff presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Helverson? Councilmember Vega.
Brian, this has been a pretty popular item as far as where I'm sitting. As we spoke about, it looks like there's a lot of public support for a change in some of our ordinances, categorizing household pets. The code enforcement issue, being that it's chickens, do we have a code enforcement issue with pigeons and other things that are already approved in this ordinance at this time, that, as far as you know? Are we having any issues or problems?
No, not right now. I did talk to our staff members, and I didn't see any problems recently with pigeons. So that's a really good question. And actually, I just want to clarify, there was one error, and I apologize, in the report that I didn't catch. The section that we're amending is 17.020.020. So I think we said 030, so it's not 030, that's a conditional use, and you don't want to require a conditional use permit. So it's actually just to voice that into the record. But again, getting back to Councilman Vega's question, I haven't seen any problems with pigeons.
Is that going to increase? Are we going to see like little stands with eggs in front too and stuff for sale? Or?
It says not for commercial purposes. After talking to Megan, and she can't be here tonight, very nice lady, but she's couldn't come to the meeting tonight. But you'll probably see in the attachment they talk about sometimes people do like gifting. We don't care about that. You know, they'll have eggs and then they'll give it to friends and family. But you know, lemonade stand, egg stand. I don't think we want to get into that tonight. But you might see the kids.
I'll leave it alone right there. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll open this up to the public. Don't be a chicken.
Where do you think he's
I am Anthony Laverty. I actually just moved here in June, and I came from Little Rock, Arkansas, where they do allow chickens in the city limits. They actually allow 12, so a little bit more than 6, but that's okay. They are pets. They're no different than dogs and cats. As long as you take care of them, you know, clean up after them, feed them, water them, they really are not a nuisance. Before moving out here, I actually looked up Lompoc. I got a job at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and I was like, okay, where am I going to live? Lompoc looked really like a nice, close town nearby. Googled chickens, Lompoc, and it came up with all these articles how we passed to allow chickens in this town, and I was excited. I was like, okay, cool. So I went to the ordinance, and it said no roosters. I'm like, okay, no roosters, but they passed chickens. So got here, built a chicken coop. $800 later, there's an article that just came out. Someone got busted. And I was like, what? I just built a chicken coop. So I now have an empty chicken coop in my single standing house with the approval of the owner, because I am renting, but it's empty. So I'm here to support the initiative to change and allow chickens. If at a minimum, at least change your ordinance so that it's a little bit more clear, because just perusing it, someone might think you're actually allowed to have chickens here, like myself. So I am in support, and they're fun. They're pets. They're They're not going to bite anyone, so thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, City Council members and Mayor Lingle. I'm Denny Overton, and I'm the one that was busted. I think this maybe all came to light after the article appeared in the Lompoc Record, and I did have 4 hands. Somebody anonymously complained, which that was one of my big problems, because if we don't know who's complaining, then as long as animal control knows who's complaining, I don't have a problem with not knowing. But I think taking anonymous complaints is a problem. For those of us we live on a large lot, and for those of us who want our food and as unaltered as possible, then we raise as much food as we can, and that included eggs. And so I am very much in favor of changing this ordinance, and I hope it will pass. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, to clarify this, complaints are not truly anonymous. If someone makes a complaint, they must sign it, and but we do not release that information for fear of retribution. So we know who the complainers are, and they must. It's not anonymous. They have to sign it, so we, the city, knows. But thank you for your comments, sir.
Hello, my name is Nikolai Nikolenko. I grew up in the city limits of Santa Barbara, and I was able to have chickens within the city of Santa Barbara. As a child, I sold chicken eggs on my street corner. I had repeat customers. Everybody was looking for me. I was looking at this ordinance as proposed, and I see that rabbits are currently not permitted in the city, and that kind of stumps me, because why would rabbits not be allowed within city limits? They're perfectly quiet pets. Chickens are wonderful animals. They're very quiet. They make very little mess, very little noise, and they're very docile and calm animals. And plus, it helps make good neighbors, because somebody in the neighborhood has chickens, they're most likely gonna be the person you go to for farm fresh eggs. And everybody knows that the eggs in the grocery store are substandard to fresh from the chicken. So I urge council to approve this ordinance as it says.
Thank you. Next, please.
Nick Gonzalez, resident of Lompoc. I'm here to speak in support of the ordinance. I think it had wide support the last time it came in. We presently have quite a few kids that participate in 4-H. I don't believe that we receive any substantial complaints of code violations from the kids that are participating in 4-H, and some of them have much larger, bigger animals than chickens. So I think that chickens would be benign, changing the definition, and so I would hope that you would pass the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Councilmember Vega.
May I add just one more thing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, as part of my presentation, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. So the way the ordinance is presented, it has to be a 6,000 square foot lot. That's the minimum. And that was presented to the council back in 2015. I was doing some research and just kind of thinking it out when the report was being drafted. And right now, we do have a lot of R1 single-family lots. We have about 5,274 lots. Not all those lots are 6,000 square feet. So technically, if someone complained and we sent a code enforcement officer out there, we would have to tell them they don't have enough room or space. So I'd like to propose that lots between 5,000 and 6,000 square feet would also be allowed to have chickens. There's about 474 parcels that are between 5,000 and 6,000 square feet. If that's something the council wants to consider, this would be the time to do it, and we could when we come back, we could have that change. So I just wanted to present that and have that before you as well as you're deliberating.
Councilmember Vega.
Thank you, Brian. As previously discussed, I would be in favor of moving forward with this ordinance change with adjusting the amendment 17008, defining household pets with the adjustment of lot size, as Brian has mentioned, to a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet. So noted, yes, there are many R1 lots there with that minimum lot size.
5,000. Sorry.
5,000. Did you say 5,000?
Yeah, I was just specifying the lots between 5 and 6, so 5,000.
Okay, 5,000, okay. I'll go along with your recommendation, so I'd like to
Mayor.
make that proposal.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I had another correction that I just noticed that I need to ask Councilmember Vega to add to his motion, if I could, for staff's recommendation, please. In addition to the typo in the section number, changing 17.020.030 to .020, we also need to change subdivision G to be subdivision I. And then I also want to be clear that the council is directing that this ordinance shall allow animal raising and keeping not only in the R1 zone, but for any legally established single-family residence that exist in any zone. So those are the two corrections that I would like to ask be made in the motion.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion with those corrections. With the ordinance number with .020 and subdivision 1, as far as those amendments. And minimum lot size of 5,000 square foot is mentioned by Planning Manager Brian Halverson.
And we also have a staff recommendation to circulate the initial study and the negative declaration. So that's included as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, I'll ask for a second on that. Then Councilmember Mosby has a comment.
I would give a second, but I would like some clarification, though. There might be something I want to change on my second. If I could ask Mr. Halverson. The 40-foot from door and window, I thought originally, a couple of years ago, we had that at 30 feet. So I'm thinking at 40 foot, if you have a 5,000 square foot lot and you have to be back half of a place, does that mean that will the lot be large enough to even do something like that? If you're 40 foot from a door window, and I'm just trying to think, as you have on page 3 of 6 down on the bottom, at least 40 foot from any window or door of each adjoining residence. Can you still, if the house is there, and dimensionally, does it work?
Yeah, actually.
Or does that put it in the alley?
Put the slideshow back on. I had some slides that were hidden that I didn't want to show because I didn't know we were going to get into this. But
and I'm thinking more for the 5,000 foot lot, maybe.
Yeah.
Will it?
I have some slides at the very end, just in case this came up regarding the numbers. So we'll go ahead and pull it up. But why we're pulling it up, the RA has the same requirement, only it's 50 feet. So they reduced it from 50 to 40, so if that means anything. Oh, thank you so much. So I found these from 2015, and it might be a little hard to read, but there's a 7,000 square foot lot, and they're just showing the dimensions, like the 10 feet from the house, the rear property line. But if you see right here, there's 40 feet. Now that's a 7,000 square foot lot. And then here's one they looked at, which was 5,186, if I can read that. You can see how the houses in this particular subdivision are a little closer, but you could just see, these are just examples. I mean, every example in town is probably going to be different because you're measuring, based on where the door is or the window. So this kind of gives you an idea of, those distances, the 10 and the 40, relative to the house. So we're showing this one 40 from any door and 40, because doors are going to be in different locations. I mean, generally speaking, they're going to be at the front, but sometimes you have a side door to a house. So, and then I think there's one more, that's another 7,000 square foot lot, so that may not be it's better probably to look at the larger lot and then the smaller lot. But it might be better to stick with what we have now, and then when we come back to you, if we have problems, then we could reduce it. But it's always good to err on caution and be a little conservative because you're going to have complaints, and so we just have to handle those. And I'm well prepared to handle those complaints and send the code enforcement officer out. So, but it's up to the council tonight if they want to reduce that.
Okay, thank you for having that ready. And did you have the bring it back in a year came along with his?
We didn't add that, but we can do that, to bring it back in a year to review the ordinance to see how the complaint-driven system is working as far as chickens.
Yeah, I think that would be
I think
wise.
that would be
And along
prudent
with
and
that,
compliant.
the dimensional component as being part of the.
Okay, yeah, if we could add that, and then we can review whether that 40-foot versus 30-foot.
Okay. With that, I give you a full second.
Restricting someone, yes, sir.
Councilmember Vega, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. So there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, I just have one comment. Back when we voted to ban chickens, I was one of the council members that voted to ban them. And the reason I did was we were receiving complaints. Now, if everyone was responsible and abided by everything, we would not have had complaints. But we did have complaints. Just like right now, we have complaints that we don't allow chickens. I can tell you that there are people in the city of Lompoc that are raising chickens, that have raised chickens, and we know that they're out there. I mean, we know, but we don't go out and we send our code enforcement officer out to everyone for every code violation unless we get a complaint. We are complaint driven. So in this case, there was a complaint. Okay, I'm not trying to pick on you, but I mean, there was a complaint, and for exactly the reason there was before. The person complained about odor, flies, rodents, whatever. And I'm not saying you weren't taking care of your chickens, but there was a complaint. And that's why we unfortunately had you remove your chickens. But there are other chickens out there. We know that. I'm going to be voting against it, but it's okay, don't worry. It's going to pass. I can tell you right now, it's going to pass. But I have to vote against it just because nothing has changed in the last several years. It's really the same ordinance we voted down several years ago. We will get complaints, just like Mr. Halverson said. We're going to get complaints. We're going to have to go out, and we'll get complaints about the same thing. Someone is going to complain about flies, odor, rodents, and we're going to have to send someone out there, and as long as it meets all the qualifications, well, it does have odor control. I mean, that is in the ordinance, odor control. As long as we have, if they abide by the ordinance, they'll be allowed to keep chickens. This thing goes in cycles, okay? I don't have a crystal ball, but I can probably reassure everyone that in several years from now, a new council will be hearing this again to ban chickens because we're having too many complaints. It's going to go in a cycle. I can tell you that if it passes, I'm considering having chickens myself, okay? I think, yeah, they are cute. And if you properly care for them and everything, they'll clean up the backyard and they'll help me fertilize my tomato plants and everything else. And you're right, a fresh egg does taste different than an egg from the store from Vaughn's. But just because I know nothing has changed, we're still going to have complaints, I will be voting against it. But don't be concerned. It's going to pass. At least 3-2, probably 4-1. Councilmember Mosby.
Yeah, just to add on a couple things that part about society's responsibility is to regulate the level of chaos that might be out there, whether it be chickens or other things that come forward. And prohibition doesn't work. Let's face it. There's probably 500 or 600 households out there right now that are doing what they're doing. At least now we have opportunities to say instead of 0, let's do it a little safer and a little better for our neighbors. There's also something else that's a big bonus that's coming along, and people who've read the new organics composting rules that are being mandated by the state, and we're just authorized the spending of a big chunk of money to do this. Chickens are awesome composters, and they'll eat your green matter and such, and they'll reduce our landfill movement. So there are a lot of other things to say win-win about. And again, I did bring up a story way back when I was down in Santa Barbara, a very nice house, and the first thing that the gentleman wanted to show me was his 15 chickens he had in his yard, and then we saw his elevator. But his chickens were the things that were really famous for him, and are doing very well, still there, and they haven't got rid of them. So let's call for the vote.
Okay, anything else? Okay, let's vote. Okay, surprise, surprise, 4-1. Congratulations. Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to written communications.
Nothing.
Yes, yes, yes. Written communications. Okay, now we're going to move on to item number 4. Okay, Mr. Wilkie.
I don't have anything prepared for this item because it was on the consent agenda, so this is a ministerial item for the most part. The one thing that was a little bit different this year was the request by the council to review the commitments of park improvement impact fees. So I've put together the slide that is Exhibit A, I believe. Slide's slightly different because the exhibit ties back to the cash, and this report I have up here takes care of the accounts payable at the end of the year, so it just talks about the commitments. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but this shows about a $1.2 million commitment of funds for projects that were out there as of 6/30/17. A lot of those were actually not funded, but appropriated in the 15-17 budget. I show the new commitments during 17-18. One of the more significant numbers there is the $106,000 for the Riverbank Stabilization Project. That's ongoing, and that's just the share of park impact fees that goes along with some of the other funding sources, primarily a state grant, I think a FEMA grant, to pay for that stabilization project. And then I show the next line is just the expenditures during the year, and then the remaining commitments at 6/30/18, which is primarily the $1.3 million is effectively the whole amount that's there. The bottom line, the undesignated projects, while that was appropriated in the current year, it's not allocated to any specific project. So that's basically the remaining available money of the park impact fees that we have right now, barring any more coming in through new development. So I'll pass it back to the council if there are specific questions on items.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I brought this back, because it was something that I'd actually made a council request on, that we bring this back for discussion. And it was kind of wrapped up in something that just gets passed through on the consent calendar. And granted, items were approved in the budget, but I believe these impact fee monies should have been more transparently brought forward and publicly discussed. And I would, for the sake of saving some time, I'd like to bring this all back, the stuff that hasn't been spent, to bring back for discussion and see if it is council's priority to do things. And as an example, the Ryan Park Master Plan for $175,000. That was wrapped up in the budget. We never really discussed it. It is in the new capital improvement plan. We haven't approved the capital improvement plan. I think it's rolled up in that for $250,000. But if we were to do a new Ryan Park Master Plan and we're going to spend that money, my concern is we don't have the $5 to $10 million to build out that. So why would we spend money to do a study if we don't have the money behind it to do a plan? So I just think there's several items that are up there that we need to tidy up, discuss publicly, and decide if these are things that we want to do with our park improvement impact fees. It's a significant chunk of money that was rolled up just in a kind of a tight ball, and that's kind of why I pulled it off to have discussion, because it was an answer to an earlier council request. And like I say, for the sake of simplicity, to make a council request that we bring those items back for a more transparent and thorough discussion, and see if that's the direction that council wants to go. Meaning the items that aren't in the middle of being spent, obviously. Some things are already committed and already under contract. I don't think we're under a Ryan Park master plan currently right now, and nor are we for $169,000 for River Park campground design. That was another project that we don't have the money to do. Why would we do a study if we don't have the money for another 10 or 20 years? Things are going to change. I think there's some tidying up with the old Charlotte's Web improvement, the 250 grand. Maybe we can come to some decision how we're working with that. But anyhow, so I mean, I know it's kind of in the middle of making a request, but if I could do that, I would be done with discussion with this item. If I could get two other people to come with me.
Okay, so for clarifications, you're asking us to table this and you're making a council request?
Yes.
No, Mr. Mayor, if I could clarify, the city council can still approve this consent calendar item because it's a ministerial act that we need to do pursuant to this government code section. And the request from Councilmember Mosby, as I understand it, is to bring back this table for additional discussion later, which is a separate thing from this consent calendar item.
Yes.
Okay, so then if you'd like, make a motion to accept staff recommendation and include in that your request to bring it back for discussion.
Yes.
That way we don't have to have two other people.
There we go.
Okay.
I'll give you a second.
I'll give you a third.
Okay. Any further discussion? Let's vote. Okay, that passes 5-0.
Public comment?
Is that clear, Madam Clerk? Oh, okay, public comment. No, we're not going to vote. Okay, we're close public comment. Let's vote again. Clear that. Okay, let's vote. Still 5-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6. And let's see, Ms. Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This item is the approval of a sole source contract for removal of materials and refuse from the Santa Ynez Riverbed in the amount of up to $400,000. As we discussed at the last council meeting, there's a real need for cleanup in the riverbed. We have a contractor that is available and skilled in this area, and that is what we're proposing for this contract. And the reason that we pulled it off the consent calendar is that we've had some experience in the riverbed as far as what type of vehicles can make it through and not get stuck repeatedly. And while it's desirable to use rubber-tired vehicles and equipment, and there are some metal equipment items that can have rubber boots put on and those kind of things, we don't want to go ahead and just totally limit the type of tire to rubber only. And so our first amendment would be to Exhibit A in the scope of the contractor services, removing the language saying approved rubber-tired equipment only shall be used in the riverbed. That will leave it open to use some of these other options that would still not damage the riverbed, but would be much more easily will be easier to use and more available. The second change that we'd like to make was amendment number 2. We'd like to amend the sole source contract Exhibit C rate schedule for contractor services. And we would like to add the following equipment after the contractor has evaluated the availability of equipment and the needs for the project. And he would like to have these pieces of equipment as an option. A vehicle, dump trailer, and its rate per day is $135. Tractor, articulated dump truck, large, $965 a day. That's a serious piece of equipment. I understand the tires are rubber, but huge. Tractor, excavator, large, and that's $499.20 per day. And a tractor excavator, small, $284 a day, and tractor skid steer, small, $296 per day. And with that, I would recommend that the council approve the quick response as a sole source provider for cleaning up some of the Santa Ynez Riverbed and bank, and award the contract as amended to quick response in an amount not to exceed $400,000. Authorize the city manager to execute the professional services agreement, which is attached, and authorize the purchasing and materials manager to issue a purchase order encumbering funds in an account number 751STR-538310, services, cleanup to quick response for up to $400,000. Thank you, and are there questions?
Councilmember Mosby.
Could you name what account that is? I mean, not all of us know the accounts by number.
The account that it's going to, the account that it would be paid from would be the Stormwater Cleanup Fund. It's a fund for cleanup of the river, San Miguelito Creek, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you. Maybe that could be added in there as well for a little more clarity for the public.
Councilmember Vega.
The funding source that's paying for this is a different source, or is it the same source of the monies that were approved by the last council meeting for over $500,000 for the riverbed cleanup?
It is money from that same fund, that same authorization.
Thank you.
Anything else from Ms. Lawson? Thank you. Open this up for the public.
Good evening. Tim Smith, resident of Lompoc. I think I appreciate Stacy's comments. That cleared up one of my biggest questions, and that was where this was coming from. But I do still have a question on the stormwater, this particular account. How is that funded from the public funds? Well, I'm sorry, I'll ask you. How is that funded from public funds? Thank you.
Okay, Stacy, would you like to clarify that?
The funding for the stormwater various accounts is through the Enterprise Fund for Water.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead. You've got 2 minutes left.
If that's the case, then I don't, obviously we have to clean it up. I mean, that's very important. But I'm not sure that the water utility is necessarily the sole source that is a problem here. It's probably the only place we have money, but typically if there's an environmental problem, say a business was causing an issue, we'd go back to the business and say, you need to pay for whatever it costs to clean it up. In this case, obviously, our homeless people don't have $400,000, but there are entities in the city that perhaps own the land, or they're charged with the responsibility of managing that land, that have enforcement capability, which the water department does not. And so it just seems a little bit odd that they're having to foot the bill by themselves. We have a park that I'm sure has some
responsibility and property there. You know, these people came in at first in small numbers, and that's where the problem really began. We should have dealt with the problem at that point. I'm glad that we've dealt with it at this point. But, you know, I think in the future, we need to look at other sources besides the enterprise funds all the time to fund this kind of a remediation where it may not be possible to recover otherwise. The reason I say that is, you know, I don't think most of the ratepayers, when they get their utility bills, are thinking when they look at their water bill that they're going to be paying for the remediation of the riverbed from that water bill. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarification, this is not going to increase your water bills. Okay. Yes, sir.
My issue, I'm Nikolai Lambert. My issue is with the city going with one contractor with this without looking at other bids. And why not find somebody who actually has this equipment instead of paying for a daily rental? Because that might be more cost efficient. Because we need to be mindful of how we spend our taxes, how we spend our city funds. Why not enlist some of the people that were in the encampments to help clean up the riverbed? That would probably help with a lot of the labor, because I'm sure there's labor charges too with this. So I just think that we should look for other bids rather than go with one sole bid. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to council. Councilmember Starbuck.
I don't know who to address this to, but I've got a question about the water enterprise. How many sub-funds are underneath there? I was unaware that we had a stormwater cleanup fund. I know we had a reserve fund for projects. I know that we have a 90-day type. I know we've got daily operation. Is this fund specifically for this type of item that's held in the water enterprise?
The word fund was kind of misused there a little bit. The water enterprise has several divisions, and the stormwater division is one of those.
So this money was actually put in this fund in case something like this ever happened. So there's like a perimeter, I guess, on it. We have a minimum and a maximum that we hold in that fund, or?
Well, last meeting, the council authorized a supplemental appropriation to fund that divisions for this service.
So that came out of the reserve on the water enterprise then?
Correct.
But we're still within our mandatory reserve numbers now?
I believe so. I haven't looked at that, but we were very healthy before this happened, yeah.
Councilmember Mosby.
If the city manager can answer one of the questions that came out, why are we, so to say, sole sourcing?
No, and the gentleman had good questions, and the reason for the sole source is essentially there's not companies out there that do this type of cleanup, because it does vary between hazardous with needles and sharps and other things in there, as well as the equipment it's going to be a unique challenge given our constraints that we have from other outside agencies on how we can get into the riverbed. There aren't really any other companies out there. We've looked around as we were doing the initial eviction process and then the planning stage on how we were going to move forward. There weren't a lot of people out there that could do that. So that's how it ended up with the sole source.
I would add, Councilmember Mosby, that the municipal code does specifically authorize these sole source contracts in circumstances that the city manager just described.
Right, thank you. And I think some of this equipment the gentleman actually owns, but they do give you a rate scale of what it costs to use his equipment, because he's got to buy it. So it's a well thought out strategic design, and I know the city biologist has got her eye all on top of them as well. So it's a complicated program they're cleaning up with. And the answer to the question that council members Starbuck had was, according to as of June 30th, 2018, pre-closing, there was a little over $7 million in that account.
Okay, so as the city attorney and the city manager discussed, the city will always go out for multiple vendor bids, except where there is only one vendor. We really didn't have a choice other than this. But we have an idea of where the bid should come in, and it's high, but that was it. As opposed, and to comment on why not have the homeless people do the cleanup. They made the mess. That had been discussed. We never really seriously considered it because of our liability. There are hazardous waste down there. There's needles, there's sharps, there's, you don't really want to know what's down there. But if we did have untrained individuals down there cleaning up, we're just opening our city up for huge liabilities. So we're going to have professionals do it, get it done properly. So that's the reason we're doing it that way. Any other discussion? Then let's see, we're closing public comment. Any other discussion? Then I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Mosby.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, let's see. This is your last opportunity for oral communication. You can speak to us for any concerning anything that can come before this council for up to 2 minutes.
Nick Gonzalez, resident of Lompoc. Today I made the mistake of presenting what I thought is an increasing issue throughout town, and you touched upon it briefly here, was the proliferation of sharps throughout town. I'm hoping that there's some kind of solution. There's a program, it's providing a needed service in the community. However, one of the consequences of that service is the proliferation of sharps all over. I'm finding them in the apartment washrooms. I'm finding them in the business trash areas where you have closed containers. I've even found them on my roof of the commercial building where people go up to hide and utilize the seclusion to use them. I'm, as a business owner, willing to contribute financially to some type of solution as to not run that service out of town, but I think that we need to find some type. This is another problem similar to the riverbed, where that if we ignore it, the magnitude and the gravitude could increase, and then it's going to be very costly, or somebody is going to have an accident. So I don't know what the solution is, but what I saw is that my putting something on social created a community to start to fight, and that's not what I was trying to accomplish. What I was trying to accomplish is to get people to work together. So I'm bringing an issue to the council, and hopefully maybe with the fire department or some other department within the city, we can work to find a solution to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that is an issue. For those of you that are not aware of what's going on, there's a service here in this community, not just this community, many communities, where they're trying to get people that use intravenous drugs to use clean needles. So they're giving out free needles to these people. What they should be doing, and we've requested this, is that they give out a free needle when they turn in the old needle. The agency has found out that people don't want to turn in the old needles, they would rather just throw it away. And so they're continuing to use the dirty needles, and it proliferates diseases in our community. There should be a solution. I know the hospital, the fire department, some of the pharmacies will give sharps containers to people. Maybe that's one solution, that we just give the people that are taking these needles a little sharps container and ask them to please use this for their disposable needle, and then turn that, when it's full, turn the sharps container into one of the containers. It's a possible solution. Here again, it comes down to individual responsibility, though. I don't know if we can try it, but I don't know if people are going to use that sharps container to dispose of their needles. I wish they would, but that's something that we could possibly try again. Councilmember Mosby.
I just wondered if we're going too far off an agendized item
Yeah,
here.
I was going to bring that up. If we want to have a discussion about the item,
Okay.
the council can request one.
Maybe the mayor would like to make the recommendation we bring this back for discussion of what we could do with this?
We can do that, sure. Okay, you're going to make that up.
I was asking if you wanted to.
I don't really, because I've discussed it when I was at the hospital. But if someone wants to make the request, we can bring it back.
Have we moved to council requests?
We are in council requests right now.
Okay. So I will make the request that we have our community development department examine what other programs are in place in other communities for needle exchange requirements or a public exchange program, and put forward recommendations possibly to partner with the county public health to provide opportunities for public collection of those needles, or to put requirements on those organizations doing that to mandate that they do that.
And I'll make a second on that.
Councilmember Mosby, your light is on.
I was just going to see if we could tag in maybe possibly, as you're making your discussion, look into maybe a CRV or something on that, because we're spending a lot of money. Maybe if there was a redemption value as part of their discussion. But you got a first and second already.
I don't care who in city does it, but I'll third it.
Okay, so it's there. And just for the record, I'm closing, unless there's someone else for oral communication? Okay, I'm closing oral communication. Okay, other council requests? Councilmember Vega.
No council request, but I would like to, I failed to mention last council meeting that I did attend the Employee Appreciation Luncheon at the Dewey Center, and I want to congratulate all the award winners, and especially the person along with that, the award winner of the centerpiece that was on one of the tables there, so I wanted to acknowledge that. I also attended a Lompoc Mural Society event over on the corner of H and Ocean, and which was sponsored by Explore Lompoc. It was a great event. These people are just so talented, and it brought in so many people, and there was a line there that allowed volunteers to actually participate in the painting of that mural, and it turned out excellent. Also, I did attend this last Saturday an event that was that was sponsored again by Explore Lompoc and many other groups for this Lompoc Chalk Festival. That was an amazing event. I believe it was Lompoc's first festival like this, which was enlightening. When I got there, I thought, wow, this is something special. We had so many talented artists with chalk even, and all the little vendors that were there in music, and there was some food. Kudos to the people selling hot dogs and the little beer stand there. I think that's something that everyone that attended was comfortable with. And I also attended the domestic violence vigil that was in front of City Hall. I was there just as a spectator, a very sobering and serious event. And my heart goes out to all the people that were affected by this, and hopefully we can curtail this even more in the future. That's it.
Councilmember Mosby.
I attended numerous city events, none at city expense.
Councilmember Starbuck.
No reports.
Okay, Councilmember Osborne, I don't know if I allowed you to finish.
I hadn't intended to finish yet. I also attended the domestic violence vigil, but I wanted to thank Sabrina Ross, who's our domestic violence advocate. She did an amazing job, not only coordinating it, but being supportive of those that were there to testify about the experiences they've had. So I want to thank Sabrina for all the hard work she does and the support she gives to our police department and all those victims. I also attended the Lompoc Fire Department's open house. It was a great day. It was really warm, and it was right next door to the mural in a weekend that was also really amazing to watch. I attended the mayor's ball that the United Way has that additionally raises funds to help the homeless issue and the veterans issue in our local community. And I want to recommend everybody consider buying tickets to support the Lompoc Police Foundation. This weekend is Coptoberfest at 10:20 at 1 p.m. at the Dick DeWeese. The tickets are on sale, and it is a fun afternoon that raises funds for our police force. Thanks, and that's it.
Okay. And I also attended many meetings, but none at city expenses, so that ends my report. And with that, this meeting is adjourned to a regular city council meeting of November 20th. We're going to be skipping November 6th, which is Election Day, so we will not have a meeting on November 6th. Next meeting is 6:30 PM right here in City Hall, November 20th. Thank you and good evening.